So talking about sustainability, who's on board?
Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think sustainability is mainstream, so you have your greenwashing effects. You have, your companies, whether they're into biofuels and fuel production or food distribution and contracting like Aramark, Compass, Sodexo, that run health, prison, institutional food services. They have a green platform. They all are on board for the green vision. Who wouldn't be on board for the green vision? So the question is really, how many shades of green are there?
Uh-huh.
And what are we really talking about, with sustainability? And for me, I mean, sustainability directly hits on systems that nourish, planet, people, and the communities. And it might not be as glossy, and it's probably a little bit more dirty, and it's a lot more real, I think, in that way. Because I think if we come into any community and let them know we have the answer, here it is, follow it and you're good, it really doesn't take into account what's come before them. It doesn't take into account any ownership, and for me sustainability has to be self-sustaining. And I don't think any community, whether it's U.S. Farm Aid projects going into Africa teaching people about food security, if they're not really going to take to those programs and projects, if the system isn't really participatory in its action and its research and engagement with the community, then I don't understand how we're going to have people be self-sufficient and resilient in their own right. So what does that look like in the U.S.? We're seeing it. We're seeing the seeds of this farm and this apprenticeship program seeding phenomenal programs, whether it's 2 decades ago with Catherine Sneed and her work in prison systems and creating gardens that reduce recidivism and teach life skills, to a recent graduate who's working and coordinating the gardening at the Homeless Garden Project, we're looking at how people can take an experience in the food system that's transformed them and then move with their community into a transformative action. And the center is all about laying those seeds of change in many levels, and that's what excites me about working here, is learning from where people take their work.
And so many questions are coming up for me, and I know our time is limited. What obstacles are you encountering in reaching this vision that you were talking about?
Boy, getting to Tahiti, what obstacles do we have here? One is engagement of the next generation. Meaningful engagement. Youth have been forgotten. Our elders have become olders, as Michael Mead says. I think really wise gentleman from the Mosaic Foundation. So when we forget about our elders and they become forgotten in nursing facilities, and when our youth are just left to fill a void with different forms of delinquent activities and behavior, we have a situational crisis of immense proportions on our hands. And so I think engaging both of those, closing the ends of cultivating a relationship across the generations, of giving space, positive space, like I mentioned with Food What to young people, and producing and feeding for their community, understanding about hunger, food security in an active way, bringing in those that have great knowledge into a conversation with young people, I think is just a very powerful way to start. Kind of big picture structurally, we need some serious federal shifts in our farm bill. Our People's Food and Farm Bill needs to emerge with kind of a whole needs to reshelve the whole commodity system. I mean, that has led to a lot of disproportionate access and inequity globally with international trade arrangements. So I mean, there's trade and there's policy at regional, state, national, international levels. There's the education and engagement of the communities, of the intersections of the critical zones of young people, old people, homeless, stricken with different forms of challenges that limit their ability to be a contributor to their community. We need to start there. We need to work there. We need, out of that work, to bring new leaders onto the table. So we need new leadership with a deeper vision. That would go a long way.
That sounds like it would. And it sounds like the farm is contributing to easing that problem.
I think that our center director, Patricia Allen, in her focus on hunger and gender and access in the food system and really evaluating community food security. And apparently she mentioned that the USDA, a few years ago, removed hunger from their kind of definitions, and it was food insecure. What does that mean when you suddenly erase the word hunger?
Mm-hmm.
Does it still exist?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, but are we talking about it that way? No, we're not. Is the language moving away from the problem? And is that convenient to cover up, or is that going to help us expose more of it and work on it? So I think she does an incredible job of leading into those issues. We have the oldest kind of organic farm extension agent in the country, and our biological staff, Sean Sweezy, with his team doing some incredible work in that domain. And our apprenticeship staff of leaders here are educating the future generation of farmers and food change agents in this country, and that's inspiring. And some of the networks I've mentioned before with the Real Food Challenge, it's a college-based program, pretty privileged group, looking at the larger gamut. And in recognition of that, 2 years ago, Real Food Challenge got together with 80 change agents, young people at the Marin Headlands Institute, our center, and I was involved with helping to convene indigenous youth leaders, whether they're Hopi, Pueblo, Navajo, Alaskan, Hawaiian, from Kansas, coming together with urban and rural food youth policy advocates, educators, talking about what is a real vision looking forward, what's a real food forward vision. And they began to request and envision a network that would help support a fabric of change that would bring young people across their interests and across the generations together to do some transformative work. And this last winter we gathered here on the farm in January with the design team to build that vision. And this fall we'll be launching the first national online social platform and network, a social fabric for the movement. Focusing on young people and historically excluded communities, but tying in the elders and the intergenerational connections from groups, campaigns, commitments from the personal to the societal.
That's great.
That's a very promising thing to come that I'm really hopeful on. That's where I just came back from my trip on the islands, was looking at the platform we'll be modeling on.
Okay.
And it's really exciting work.
That's exciting.
We're at an exciting time. We're at a very difficult and challenging time when it comes to hunger and obesity and inequity, economically in the domestic scene as well as internationally. So the goal, I think, also would be linking young people across boundaries, national boundaries too, cultivating an international dialogue and building relationships, because times ahead are going to be tough. And what I've found in my work is just the stronger the relationships across the greater diversity of players, the more certain I feel that there could be a solution. One of us may get it right. 30 of us are going to fail. And that's the beauty of it. Secretary A.J. Kuramau, I've been part of the California's Department of Ag visioning process for 2030. At one of our gatherings, he announced, several systems in California agriculture will fail in the next century. So this system feeds the country and is a significant contributor globally also. If several of its systems are going to fail, what is that going to look like? And this question is, it's not the one solution we're looking for, but it's the diversity of models we're going to experiment with now, that some are going to get it right enough that we can continue. And many are just going to fail, and we're going to need to accept that and be prepared for that. So I think with that in mind, we shouldn't expect an abundance, that the distribution issues will loop in the right direction and suddenly everyone's going to be fed. We're going to have to prepare to push models through a very difficult time and hope that we get to it enough in enough time. I mean, it's big.
It's huge. And when you say in enough time, what are we talking about?
And it's so difficult to do that because every day we're losing people left and right. As soon as possible. We need to be on it. We should be on it. We are on it. We need to be on it even more. We need to be more bold. We need to have more bold support federally. And Obama calls for a movement. He wants to see a movement, and then he'll respond. I think that movement needs to manifest itself. And I hope young people with this For Real Food Network are going to step up, and he's going to hear it. And I hope that the subsections and the fragmentations in the alternative food movement, whether they're hunger, food bank, food security, alternative agriculture, will be able to rally closer together with the next 2012 Farm Bill to make some serious change. And we need those bridges now. 2 years out is